Young Turks teamed up with Amex on a documentary called Spent, Looking for Change. And I love this documentary. It talks about people who are underserved financially, okay? The unbanked, the underbanked. What does unbanked mean? It means people who don't have a bank account. And you think like, well, what's the big deal? Well, but the big deal is they constantly are paying more and more rates. Mm-hmm. So like if you're gonna go cash your check, you gotta pay 2 to 4%. Right? If you're going to go then give money to pay your bills, you actually have to pay a percentage to pay your bills. Yeah. That's another 2 to 4%. These are all examples, but overall, it costs those families over the span of their lifetime $40,000 on average.
It's insane, and the reason why they get denied a bank account is because either they have bad credit to begin with and a bank doesn't want to do business with them, or they just don't have enough money to open a bank account. You know, a lot of bank accounts now have limits. For instance, a lot of checkings accounts ask you to have at least $2,500 in the account, or they're going to charge you a fee every single month. So, I mean, it's just one way that some people in the country are being underserved.
Right, and look, there's things like payday loans where they pay, their interest rates can be up to 300%. On the other hand, people need those quick and easy loans, right? So it's not like to shut down the industry or whatever, but is there a better way to do that? So now, American Express is a financial company, of course, and so in the marketplace, you try to find ways that you can make money while helping your consumers if you're doing it right,
exactly.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so they investigated this problem, and then they realized the breadth of the problem, and then they put together this documentary, which I think goes to show you the depth of it, honestly, to the degree that I didn't even quite recognize. So I want to show you a piece of documentary here.
For millions of people, banking is broken.
The implications are massive. The middle class is breaking at its foundation.
They're increasingly turning to alternative financial services like check cashers and payday lenders.
I was broke and I felt like I didn't have the option.
It just feels like regardless of how many nights I don't sleep, of how many jobs I try to find, it's just not enough.
I see this commercial that looks like it will fix all of my problems.
People often judge me on the choices I've made, not knowing the options that I had.
And so the spiral begins.
The picture of the financially unstable is you and me.
This is your nanny who's taking care of your children. This is the admin in your office.
This is everybody's problem.
If you could put $100 billion back into the economy, that's meaningful.
It's a problem that we can solve.
The sky's the limit for people wanting to build alternative approaches to the system.
We have an opportunity to use modern technology to solve problems in a more cost-effective way.
So last night we did a panel on this, which we live streamed too. And you can watch the whole documentary on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/TYT. And by the way, it already has over 3 million views.
Yeah, it's an incredible documentary because
right.
I think it, first of all, profiles so many different stories, and each story is unique in how these people have gotten screwed over by being denied bank accounts, right. How many fees that they have to pay, how it does become a vicious cycle because as soon as you take out that loan, you know, you have to pay interest, and a lot of times people don't have the money to pay off the actual principal, they just pay off that monthly fee, and that adds up to thousands of dollars.
Right, so I want to just tell you one more thing about it, because look, first of all, obviously we partner with Amex. What Amex wants to do is they want to start this conversation, and that's why they looked into it, and then you can judge for yourself later what their solutions are, but they're saying they have only one of many solutions to this. And yesterday in the panel we talked about how there are political solutions and bills you can pass, etc. But first you need to understand what the problem is, right? So Tiffany in that story, she was the African-American woman that you saw in that trailer. So she has a job, she's got 3 degrees, she's got an MBA, etc. She was a nurse. And by the way, most of the stories are because of healthcare issues. Mm-hmm. They wind up, whether it's to their mom, it's to their kids, it's to themselves, they wind up in a financial hole. Mm-hmm. And then it's really hard to get out of that financial hole. And so she takes out a loan based on her car, which a lot of Americans do, yeah. Right? And she needed the money right away, so you get it. But then she falls further and further behind, like she says in that trailer, and then she loses her car, and then she can't drive to work.
Yeah.
It's a vicious cycle. And my favorite quote out of the whole movie was actually in that trailer. When Justin says, people judge me
for the decisions I made without knowing the options I had.
That's a great quote, man. It reminded me of Mitt Romney saying like, hey, you know, if you need to start a business, why don't you just borrow money from your parents? Because not everyone has parents that they can borrow money from, right? You got to know the options that people had. So it's a really good insight into a huge problem. It's, by the way, it affects 1/4 of all Americans, 70 million Americans.
It's insane.
And the amount of money extra that they pay. So, like, you know, the rich get richer in this sense that, like, then you get free banking, et cetera. And it's logical. Like, you have good credit, so they want to give you better rates, right? You got bad credit, you're a bigger risk. So we get that part of it, right? But then the poor wind up having to pay more and more fees, right? So the fees total $89 billion. So you got to find a solution to this problem one way or another, right? This documentary is the beginning to finding out the depth of the problem, and then we can all look for solutions, okay? So we partnered with MX on that. Everybody check it out. And like we said, we think it's a great documentary.